Are live. So before you keep that thought going, we are live. It is. Sorry about that,
I'm
Frank.
I'm not scared of that live button.
I know I
I'm
hit
not
it.
scared of that. I was born for live.
I know you're talking about sunbathing, and I just turning on the button.
I put the live in alive, baby.
Okay. Well, you definitely
So
had a moment to be alive yesterday.
I
Welcome,
did.
welcome to the
You
podcast, Frank. I'm in the
you have
dark, the
seen
mushroom. You're in the light.
you have you have seen that firecracker side of me. You've seen that. You've seen that more than a couple times. And
Uh,
it's further proof that none of us are perfect. None of us is perfect. That we all have our flaws and and the same thing, that firecracker intensity and ferocity and just amazing passion. It can burn both ways. And
hey,
you know that as my friend. So
yeah, I want to ask you, how was your training today? Because since things have opened up, and I'm kind of in a moment where I can take advantage. I went this past week over to drop into Jordan's 6 a.m. Um, training session at 10th Planet in
hmm
Henderson, and the I had a great experience, despite the fact that it's not in the gi. I love my gi. I love the training in the gi. So doing no gi, I'm embracing it, and I'd like to, for the interim, for the very short term, I'd like to get over there and do some more training. So, how was your training? Today's Sunday open mat there.
yeah, well, whenever I went over there and trained with Casey, and I usually, if I go to an open mat, and they have a lot of guys my size. They have more and more. Tenth Planet's evolution over the years has been interesting because they've really attracted a lot more wrestlers. They started off with the guard and the rubber guard, and that's what Eddie Bravo was infamous and notorious for. And he had some guys, a handful or 10 guys that were really phenomenal with that rubber guard system, but they weren't known for the wrestling. They were the guard pullers. They were the guard players. And to Eddie's credit, they've evolved. They've added tremendous. They've really refined the system for back attacks, for leg attacks, for heel hooks, and they've attracted a lot of wrestlers. So they've got a lot more good wrestlers. I think a lot of the guys over there also know how to flow. I think because they drill so much in the system. A lot of the warm ups there are drills, and they're very specific about those drills. And they've got a lot of guys that have different gears. I always think if you're going to be a master of grappling, you've got to have different gears. You could have a flow gear, you could have a gorilla gear, you could have an all out, you could have you should be able to roll with a 10-year-old kid if you had to. And, you should be able to roll with a woman, where you're not going to use as much pressure. It's just, like I've said here many times, from Bruce Lee to Anderson Silva, like a real master can dial it at 5%, 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, 80%, 100% on a dime at their choosing. They can choose to throw that punch at full power, and it comes an eighth of an inch from your nose, and they'll stop it and they'll pull it. That's a master. So I always get good flow rolls in. I actually rolled recently with Jordan and working on some stuff with him. He's just gotten so much better. So we'll have Jordan Worth on the program again soon. He's just gotten so much better. He's just very dangerous. He's also half my age, and he's about 20 pounds heavier now too. So that makes it tough.
Yeah, I enjoyed my role over there, and it was good to get back on the mat. I'm a little stiff, my sciatica is acting up a bit. So we're going to ask you, just in the near term, for the next, at least for the next handful of shows or so, me sitting down is creating some pain, and it's harder for me to stay focused whenever I'm in pain with our conversation. So just for a little bit, I'd like to trim back the
No problem.
podcast duration. So with that
No problem.
said, that doesn't mean we can't have fewer. We can just open it up and just kind of hit more topics in different episodes. So that's all I'm asking.
Well, I'm glad that you're endeavoring into the no-gi space some. I know that you can't wait to get back to Henzo Gracie Academy in New York City, and that's your favorite habitat, and you love representing that flag, and you're very loyal. But I would say, again, as somebody, I always try to design my game for. I never fought in a cage, but if I did, I wanted something that would work there, or work in a real street defense situation, or no-gi, gi. I really enjoyed all facets, from MMA training to wrestling, to the gi, to the no gi, to stand up, sparring, and so I've enjoyed it. I will say that right now I really am going through a phase. It's no gi is undergoing a renaissance right now. It really
Yes, it
is. No
is. Yeah,
gi,
it's got to be.
there's a renaissance. They're making no gi. A lot of the, not just Gordon Ryan, but a lot of them are making it. I mean, use the word sexy. It's just much more appealing. It's, and you've got more platforms that are catering it. So this is really a renaissance of no gi, and I am enjoying the no gi more, which is ironic because I'm older. You would think I'd want the grips to slow people down, but I kind of like it because no gi done well is fast. A lot of times with the gi has gotten so exotic with the grips, even in an IBJJF tournament. One person has to wear that yellow and green belt. I don't know if anybody out there has ever seen that yellow and green belt and had to wear it. It's like an extra, 1 pound around your waist. It's annoying. It's cumbersome. The opponent can grab it. It's absurd. It's ridiculous that like you already have plenty of clothing on. You've got 3 pounds of gi on you, and now you've got an extra pound of the crappiest belt humanity's ever seen at yellow and green belt. You got 2 belts on you. It's just absurd. Like, there's just too much stuff to grab on. The game can be, slower and boring. So I'm enjoying.
Mm.
At the moment, I'm enjoying no gi more. And I just did no gi American National. So.
Yeah, yeah. You and I talked yesterday evening after your matches, and that it just like in the UFC where if you understand the fighter's style and you understand the matchup, you can kind of have a predictive model of how it's going to go. However, that being the case, certain fighters have an approach about them, especially if they want to stay longer in the game. If they want, just for example, some fighters, if they get poked in the eye or they get a groin shot, they know that there's certain little gray areas, or they know the rules so well that they maximize it to their own benefit. And in terms of like big dollars, in one's career, man, I mean that really matters, and that's also when you look at how the effect of a system, because a rule set is nothing more than a system. If you tell me the rules, I'll tell you how to play the game. That if you know tax code, like in areas of the tax code, people spend inordinate sums of money on professional advice, improving what they know about the rule set. And I say this like from even a geo arbitrage perspective. Right now, the U.S. dollar to Brazilian reais is like 4.9. It was up to 5.8, and so that affects you because if you know the rules of the game, you got to know your strategy. And like for an IBJJF tournament, the same kind of dynamic applies. If you know the rules of the game, then I'll tell you how to play it. And I guess for me, like the first time I interfaced with the IBJJF, I didn't realize that I was actually, where I was at in the match, because they were all yelling at me in Portuguese, and I had a leg triangle locked up, and I just did not know as a white belt how to finish it. But somehow I came out in second place at the end of the second match, and I think it's just because of my, I was just trying. I didn't go in there to knowing much about jits, really, or knowing much about the rule set. I was just in there like I just want to, I'm going for the win. The win means a submission. I wanted to submit the guy, but the funky thing about rule sets is um, they distort. They distort reality. I'm a CPA and accounting. When you look at financials, you're looking at the distortion. It's a distorted reality of what the company actually did. It's hard to tell. What are your thoughts about IBJJF rules for a gi or no gi? You competed no gi yesterday or gi? You
No
said
gi, no gi.
no gi.
Well, first of all, let me say that I'm happy that you and I are having this conversation today instead of yesterday after the tournament,
Okay.
which should pretty much tell people how I feel about how I did my performance yesterday. Competed in my age group. I'm still very capable on my best days. I'm still, I feel like some days I feel like, wow, I feel 15 years younger. But I'm still dealing with a lot of injuries. Some of those injuries have been life-threatening with the blood clots.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those have certainly been career-threatening. I just had my shoulder come out of the socket a couple weeks ago, popped it back in, kept training. So by my age, there's a lot of miles, 36 years in the combat sports. Been doing this a long time, pushed my body. So I did my age group, hadn't done a tournament in 3 years. Chose to do no-gi because I sat out 2020 with COVID, yada, yada. So I haven't competed in 3 years, didn't train all last year. I've been feeling the no-gi more this year, and I've trained more than no-gi. So I thought, let's go back no-gi. I'm not going to talk about a serious injury that has been bothering me. It's not the shoulder. It's been bothering me a lot, but I was like, I'm going to heal that. I got to get back out there. So anyway, let's say this about IBJJF. Let's say the good, because I want to praise them. They do deserve some praise. I don't want to sit here and just be one-sided. IBJJF deserves some praise. The growth of jiu-jitsu, they played a part. UFC played a part. The Gracies played a big part. Dana White played a part. The Fertitas, the fighters who spilled their blood, of course, have played a humongous part. The fans that were diehard, that told their friends, and that were having parties and inviting people over, the
Mm-hmm.
media, a lot of people have done their part. But IBJJF has done its part. I mean, when you look at jiu-jitsu events all over the world, IBJJF was carrying that flag. They were putting on, generally, they were the premier brand in hosting grappling events for many years. To win an IBJJF medal for over the course of the last 20 years, it's been among the most prestigious you could do. I mean, arguably the two most prestigious honors in jiu-jitsu were, or submission grappling was an ADCC tournament or a jiu-jitsu gold world championships or jiu-jitsu pan medal. Should be Pan Americans, but they just call it the pan medal. Those are really the most prestigious titles you can win. So IBJJF has events all over the world now. They've helped the sport in many ways, and I've competed in a lot of their tournaments for like 18, 19 years now. So I respect, that they've grown it and some of what they've done for sure. And they've had, if you just look at the last 20 years, 23, 24 years, you take the best grapplers. I mean, gi or no gi, you'd have to say that under one roof, you were just to pick who's under one roof. It's IBJJF. Over the last 24 years, if you just go the last quarter century, IBJJF has had them and, competing there. They've had the best. Times are changing now. There's other platforms. There's other rule sets. So is that going to stay the case in the future? I mean, we'll see, because there are some other people out there that are taking advantage of, hey, your rule set has some limitations. We're going to take advantage of that. We think that there's opportunity there, and there is. Namely, for instance, with leg locks and heel hooks, where they would let certain leg locks, but there were a lot of the leg locks that weren't legal. You couldn't leg reap. You couldn't, the heel hooks, etc. Other organizations popped up and took advantage of that, and realizing that, hey, the black belt you have that's so awesome, it doesn't really have to defend their legs or their heels much. Well, if we change that and make them have to defend every inch of their body, different outcome. If we make it a no sub instead of you score 3 points and then stall the rest of the match and grab some grip with the gi and stall, if we make it no sub, the outcome can be much different. So other tournaments have taken advantage of that. And so while I could praise a lot, like yesterday in the tournament, one thing I give IBJJF, the tournament was very well run. It was very professionally run. They've really refined it. It has a professional feel to it, from, you know, when you get to the podium, to the referees, and to the ring coordinators. It ran very well. The events were on time yesterday. My matches were on time. I've had other matches in the past with IBJJF and other organizations where I waited in the bullpen 2-3 hours, more, sometimes more. They've gotten better at that, right? Like they've learned how to make the trains run better. They deserve praise for that. That's not easy to do. It's not easy to host tournaments that have 5,000 competitors. They do that. Now, on the bad side, though, what I would say, like, they still have a rule set that lets people just full guard and lay on their back if they want. I mean, you can just full guard, lay on your back, you know, don't let the other guy pass, grab a knee or a leg for a second, get an advantage, and win. Or stall the whole match and then go crazy and get a sweep at the end, which is a very common strategy, actually, when two higher level guys go, where they stall the whole match, don't let the other person pass, dog and pony show, make it look like you're busy, and then fight for an advantage last second, get an advantage or a sweep, get the sweep, get the advantage, and then just shut it down, stall, time expires. We've all seen that show so many times. If you've been following IBJJF, and they still let it happen, where not only that, my opponent in the finals yesterday, I won my first match by submission, by a rear naked choke. Felt
Congratulations.
great. Second match finals, I felt great. Psychologically, I felt great. I felt super confident. My faith was strong. I felt super relaxed. The match was kind of moving, not in slow motion, but I wasn't in the zone, but I was like in a really good zone. Things were moving slower. There was nothing moving fast. My breathing was on point. I felt great. I knew my opponent, who's been a black belt, I heard, since like 1997, 1998. So the guy's been around forever. He's under the Gracie Baja flag. He's a nice guy. He's a black belt. He's very battle tested, done a bunch of tournaments, but I had seen him in his previous match. I'm like, this guy, he's a referee too. There's an IBJJF ref who knows every nook and cranny of that rule book. Every nook and cranny, every way you can beat the system, game the system, do a whole lot of nothing, but try to make it look like you're doing something.
Yeah.
And when you're out there with a guy, and the guy doesn't want to fight, you can feel that. When you're out there with your opponent, sometimes the fans might know later that the other person, that guy, I could feel this guy. I could tell when I scouted him in the match before that he's a staller and he just tries to barely win, do the bare minimum, and play it super safe. He doesn't go for it, doesn't really want to fight. Then when I got out there with him, I could feel that too. He wanted to pull, not even sit up, lay on his back, go for some fake calf crunch, get an advantage, whatever. I mean, he didn't want to do anything. He just wanted to win in the most boring way possible, safe way, and that was going to be good enough for him. And I'm thinking, to me, I'm like, first of all, I don't respect that. I respect him. I respect a competitor. I'm grateful that competitors show up. I respect him as a person. I did not respect the way he fought. And then you can say, well, that's sour grapes. He won 2-0. I'll explain the score and everything. But you can say, well, that's sour grapes. I don't care what it's sour. It's the truth. I don't respect. Look, if I was to fight Gordon Ryan, I would probably just be trying to survive. I probably wouldn't be trying to, like, I'm going to choke Gordon Ryan. I mean, probably when I was out there, I'd be like, wow, there's so much danger. The guy outweighs me. He's younger. I would probably be in full-on survival mode. But when you fight someone who's been a black belt a long time, and I've been a black belt a long time, we're roughly the same age, we're the same weight, bro, let's just go for it. Let's get better. You get better when you go for it. You grow your game when you go for it. The win is more fulfilling when you go for it. The win is more decisive when you go for it. You leave no doubt that at least today I was a lot better than my opponent. If you dominate, even if you just dominate on the scoreboard, even if the guy put up like 10 points, 12 points, 15 points, he was going for it, even if he didn't submit me, he's like, wow, today was your day, bro. You really came at me. Respect to you. I got a lot to work on. As it happens, even losing what I would consider like lame, I didn't even feel like a loser. I felt like I just fought a guy who was a rabbit who ran the whole time, which I hate, which any MMA fighter hates. Anybody hates that. Like, nobody respects somebody that just stalls and tries to act like they're busy. And then when he wins, it's like, you know, does this, oh, yeah, the crowd is, his little entourage is going crazy. I'm like, bro, don't encourage him. He fights like a coward, like, for real. Like, that's the way a coward fights. Like, we're taking time away from work. We're dieting. We're doing a lot of things right. We're sacrificing to be here. Let's get after it. Let's, as I call it, let's rodeo, bro. Like, let's come to rodeo. Let's come to test drive this body and see what we can do. Why? How about you try to finish me and I try to finish you? I'm going to let you speak in a second, but I'm going to say one thing I said to him, and this is just factual. It's not, I mean, a lot of people will say, well, Frank, you didn't handle that the right way. And, you know I've got a list of 30 things I need to work on. Okay, so there's a lot. I'm going to take full, extreme personal responsibility for it, for the result, because a great champion should be stall proof. You need to be so great that you can beat that. You can beat the team like in soccer, the team that just doesn't even want to score, doesn't want to attack you at all. They put all their defenders back. Their only goal is to not let you score and then put the game in a penalty kick. Right? There's tons of soccer teams that do that. Right? If you're playing a France or a Brazil, or when Italy has a great team, or whatever. Italy does this a lot actually too. Italy does this, but you play the French now, or Belgium, or some of these powerhouses. You see teams play them, they're like, we don't even care about scoring. We're just going to hyper defend, stall, slow ball. Hopefully we can get penalty kicks and be lucky, right? This is the version of what I faced. And what I realized yesterday, I was disgusted, but I'm like, Frank, you've got to get so much better that this stalling stuff doesn't work. You've got to be better than that. You've got to go far beyond that. You've got to take, it only had 5 minutes. But I went up to him and said after this, listen, and I said it to him in a normal voice. I didn't yell at him or whatever. I didn't threaten him. But I said right before we were getting the medals, I did not want to be on that medal stand, but just in the spirit of good sportsmanship, I posed for the picture, and I shook his hand, I shook another opponent's hand, but I said to him, like, I'm gonna tell you what, man, if you ever come to finish me, I promise you, I'm gonna finish you. If you ever dare try to really come and fight me and finish me, and I felt that in the core of my soul. I felt that in the pit of my soul, like a Diaz brother would feel it in their prime. I'm like, bro, if you come to kill me, I promise you, you're gonna get choked. You're gonna tap. I can feel it. I can feel it in your game. You do not want to rodeo with me, because my jiu-jitsu will finish you, and that's why you fought the way you did. And he was like, I don't speak a good English. That's what he said. It's a good comeback. I don't speak such good English. But I felt the need to say that. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but I wanted him to know, like, you could do two things, Noah. You could take the approach, don't say anything, you're a bad sport, sour grapes, take personal responsibility, don't make excuses. On the other hand, I'm thinking, I want to look you in the eye. Do you feel really fulfilled by what just happened?
There you go. That's gold right there.
Do you go home and do you look in the mirror? Does that make you feel good? Does that make you feel like a champion? Is that really satiating? Is that really fulfilling? Is that really progress? Mm-hmm. Do you really feel like you're better than me when you fight like that? Oh, I fight the strategy or whatever. Do you want to see if you can finish me, brother? Do you want a decisive? Do you dare? Because the thing about decisive victory that so much of us respect, whether you're in an octagon or you're a no-gi or you're ADCC or you're IBJJF, what we respect about it is it requires a daring. It requires a bravery. It's like a poker player saying, I'm going to put a lot of chips up, brother. I believe in me. I will bet monstrous on me. It's a bet on yourself. And when you play that stall ball, that stalling game, that dog and pony thing, and then pretend that you're the champion, you're the American national champion or you're whatever, it's like, you really can look in the mirror like, dude, I mean, how about a decisive victory? How about you go for it? And how about even if you lost, you get better that way? You'll know. Are you really better than me? We'll both know. That's what I'm just talking about, that spirit. That's what a lot of us in the you're a martial artist. Martial arts, another thing I would say to IBJJF, and there's a lot of things they do well, but the martial art has to reflect the functionality and the skill a martial artist would really need in real situations. When you let a guy lay on his back who would get his head punched in, head kicked in, head kneed, and you let him lay on his back and do that BS. There is nothing functional about it at all. It is horrible, it is despicable, and it's not it's not going to produce really good martial artists, which is why some of these guys, there's been a lot of jiu-jitsu guys over the years that have just gotten destroyed in cages. A lot of them, because we've encouraged this with a rule set that's a joke. Now, to the credit of the big boys in
Uh-oh, I believe I'm giving it a second here. It looks like Frank's frozen on me. You know, the heat's gotten to his device, I bet. It is hot out there. Let me pop Frank out and then see if he pops back in. All right. Hopefully Frank will join me again in a second. I'm gonna see if I can get him back, log back in, because he's on a tear and it's good stuff. This is good medicine. I'm sitting here thinking as he's talking, just how good it is to compete, and the feeling of value. That's truly the gold standard. And what he's talking about, you know, do you get that satisfaction from competing? Um, you know, I saw on Instagram some of my buddies from Henzo's came out to Vegas to compete. I couldn't compete at the time. It's just I had way too much on my plate. But I'm getting there. It's getting closer and closer. I've had to deal with my perfectionism a bit to um, dealing with my perfectionism. That's always a problem, you know, to have the perfect scenario. But this is beyond that. This is like some family health issues that I had to deal with. So I'm going to give him another minute. I'm going to see if I can grab a hold of him through texting real quick. Let's see. Give him a second. Maybe he can restart his device real quick. Hopefully so. But oh man, I want to hold off what I got to say until I get Frank back here in a second. I want to hold off what I want to say because I want him to hear it. That's like, you know, the give and take of this setup. You know, it's great. It's great to have where we can just drop in wherever we're at. We could talk for a half an hour to 45 minutes. The drawback, of course, is whenever there's a connectivity issue, we can't get connected again. So just bear with me a second. This is something I can always edit out in the future as we start editing these videos. So let me see if I can get my Frank back. Yeah, he's offline at the moment. My man Frank, where you at? Let's give him another minute or two. Oh yeah, he's okay. So he's texting me. Oh yeah. So his phone got too hot, and that's what I thought. All right. Let's see here. Oh, there he is.
Hey, what's up, man?
There you are. All right. So you relocated.
My phone mega melted.
Yeah, that, you know, that's what I was saying while you were away was one of the downfalls of there are many benefits to being you know, where we can meet up like this. You know, I can be in New York.
I suspect that IBJJF hacked our connection. I suspected that's what
I doubt that.
I'm kidding.
I know. They don't have that kind of resource. You know, I don't know if you recall where you were at mentally, and it takes us a moment to get back at that spot. But I want to tell you, you just said something that is like, that's just so perfect for me to hear what you just said, which is, the level of satisfaction from competing, whether you win or lose or draw, the satisfaction of competing and testing yourself. As you know me, recently I've had my challenges to get back on the mats, and I'm happy to be getting on the mats despite, dealing with sciatica, and I'm having some knee pains, back pain, and then taking care of other life stuff that has to be taken care of. These things must be in place because you have to have these things in place to have regular jujitsu practice. It's like you cannot skip over steps. It's like when you were showing me the head and arm choke, you cannot go from side control immediately in all the way up. You can't skip those steps. You can't skip moving over the thread by thread. So anyways, that I have to balance that with the threat of perfectionism that can come into play of me not competing. But so I'm, it's a balance.
I did want to add one thing, because the interesting thing with this butt scoot thing and lay on your back, the great thing about the heavier players, like part of me wishes I was 200, 220, because a lot of those guys, they do the bigger guys, even IBJJF, they do the takedowns. Like they're not just guard pullers. Those guys stand and they try for the takedowns and they try for throws. I'm talking the 180-pound, the guys that are 180. The heavier you go, the more you have the grapplers, even in IBJJF, that want to get after it or do the takedown. I think a good rule change for IBJJF, and it should have happened a long time ago, is if you pull guard, whether you have a grip or not, it's -2. So if your guard is that great, okay, but it's -2 every time you do it. So in other words, when you pull guard, you can still pull guard, but you better have a great guard, and now you can't just stall because you are losing. So now if you're a guard player on the bottom, you cannot just sit there and stall and play stall ball. You have to fight aggressively. So that's just a rule they should have made a long time ago, which is, okay, you don't want to do takedowns, that's fine, but you're -2 every time you do that.
How about
but
this,
I do
Frank?
want to say, yeah.
How about this? How about if instead of a point, it's they give advantages. Why can't you also grant a disadvantage for that?
An advantage wouldn't be enough, because it's so easy for a skilled player who knows the rule book to get it to sneak another advantage in there, like doing very minimal. It's just too easy to make up for the really skilled players.
But you call it a disadvantage. You create what's called a disadvantage.
I like -2. Now you got to fight. Now you got to fight hard. You're down 2.
Yeah.
You got to fight for real. An advantage, you can kind of make it, sell a sweep a little bit, make it look like, you got to sweep, play with a foot a little bit. You're down 2. You got to really start going for it as the clock ticks away. So you have to be more aggressive.
Yes.
And I would say -2 every time you pull or go to every time you pull. So if you do it 3 times in a match, you're down 6 now. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say is, for people that say this is sour grapes, because there is a part of me that's like, look, don't complain, Frank, never complain, right? Just never complain. But if you never complain, and there's never any improvements, nothing ever changes. The rules don't change. Like, somebody has to be the one to raise certain issues. That's how change can happen as well, right? And so I am taking full responsibility for this in my training. I've got a list, like in my notepad, of things to fix. But I want to say, for the record, I've done well over 300 matches, grappling, jiu-jitsu, wrestling matches, submission grappling. I faced, some of the best: Denny Procopos, Guilherme Mendez, Cal Terra, Gabe Moraes, a multiple-time world champion, many others. I've trained with Ryan Hall and Lucas Leche and Robert Drysdale and just on and on and on. Many world champions. And when I lost matches, whatever, I did not have that feeling that I had yesterday. Because when I fought Cal Terra, he went for it. Gabe Moraes did hold back against me. He did. But he won 10-0. So I couldn't really complain and say, hey, Gabe Moraes, you didn't really come after me. He put points on the board. I thought he was conservative. I thought he pulled guard a bunch. Gabe Moraes, I think, pulled guard on me like 3 times. I'm like, that should be 6 points. Like, stand up with me. I could score on Gabe Moraes. Like, if he wants to stand, I believe I could score on him, right? Maybe it's a different match. But in any event, the point I'm making is, like, if you can beat me, and it's happened in training, and it's happened in tournaments where my best wasn't good enough, and I'm man enough to go and shake your hand and be like, wow, man, I respect the way you fight. I'll see you again in, next year or in 6 months.
Yeah.
That's been something I've been doing this a long time, and I have it in me to do that and shake a man's hand, look him in the eyes, thank him for coming out, thank him for testing me, and saying congratulations on your victory. That's a noble thing to do. That's the right thing to do. But when you don't respect how the guy fought, I could have bit my tongue, but I just couldn't resist it. Now, let me say one thing. I want to tell you this. I know we're coming down on time here.
Yep.
And Jordan and I were working on some of this recently. I had an arm-in guillotine with 30 seconds left. So I did have a moment, even with all his stalling BS. I got a moment where I got right to where I want to be. And I made a mistake. The reason I made a mistake is there was only about 30 seconds on the clock. And he was on his side, so I had the arm in. I didn't have my closed guard. I didn't have the angle. I needed there to be a little more rolling, or I mounted him, but he was strong. I couldn't turn him. I couldn't mount him, and I couldn't induce him or force him to roll on top of me so I could get the angle. So I was there, and I was like, wow, in 30 seconds, this, you're making a decision. You're making a dilemma. Do I continue to try to finish this arm in with 29, 28, 27, and this guy's going to stay here and stall? Or do I try to transition to something else really quick and get the points down 2-0? Because I gave him a sweep because I wanted to try to force action. And in that, I made a mistake because there's a Japanese necktie from that arm-in guillotine. There is a Japanese necktie there. And I used to do that for years. Jordan knows. Jordan used to come over and train with me, Blue Diamond, UFC gym. And it was right there, and instead I abandoned it and tried to get my 2 points. I wound up not getting it, and the time expired. And I thought, wow, if I go to that Japanese necktie, I've got a shot. I mean, that would have been my best shot. But it's weird. Sometimes you get away from moves that have worked for you for years. You just get away from them. You start falling in love with new moves. You evolve your game. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, I used to do that choke all the time. In fact, I was doing that before Jordan was doing it. And now
I remember you talked about it before.
I have to be reminded of it, and I was like, oh my God, that was the right decision there. And then Jordan did show me a nice rollover where you roll over your shoulder and then you re-roll back to mount, which was very nice. I did not have that in my brain. So he showed me two things that could have solved that riddle last night. One is a move I used to do a lot. And then the other was just something like, oh my God, I've seen that, but I didn't think to do that. So thank you for showing me that. So anyway, we're already troubleshooting and saying, okay, in the future, when you get a guy in that spot and there's 30 seconds left, how do you finish it? And then we're not having this conversation. So I am taking responsibility at the end of the day and saying, okay, I let him off the hook. I erred in decision there. I made the wrong decision. And so that part was my fault. And I got a lot to fix.
But that motivated you to today to go and roll and seek knowledge. And that's what, or seek to revisit what knowledge that you forgot about. So you were still motivated. You're still hungry. Do you think that you'll be competing again at the Masters in November?
Well, I'll have to huddle with my sponsors. I might be starting grad school here. You know that. I mean, so hopefully I will be starting grad school. I'm starting a new job. I think so. I think there's a long list of things though that I want to get better at. I mean, there's literally, like I said, there's at least 30 some things, and I'm excited to get better. And the reality is I was mad yesterday. You heard me. I was pissed. But the reality is, the way you get better is you take full responsibility, right? Sometimes you have to go through a grieving process or a pissed off process.
I heard it. I heard it for 45 minutes.
And then at the end of the day, you have to take full responsibility. And the full responsibility is, listen, you had him in the damn arm-in guillotine, Frank, and you didn't finish it. Your fault. You knew he was going to stall, and you didn't make him pay for it, and you didn't pass his guard and take his back and make him pay for it. Your fault. So at the end of the day, even though, yes, I was pissed, yes, I'm railing against the rules. I think some of the rules are just like, these are just not good rules. This guy's the poster boy for that, for those couple of the bad rules. So this guy was the poster boy for that. But in any event, here we are today, new day, full personal responsibility, have a long list of things to work on. And if you're going to be a real champion at any level, at a higher level, if you're going to be a real champion, you have to be so good that even when they're stalling, even when they're running, even when they're playing this game, you still win. And I wasn't.
It'll make
And
your
that's the
jiu-jitsu
challenge
better.
now. The challenge now is to get so good that the next time he does that, you make him pay,
Yeah.
and then he learns in the future that he has to fight. You force him to fight then because he realizes that stalling won't work, and so now he's forced to fight. So I'm actually be helping him.
Yep.
I'll be helping him like,
There
hey
you go.
buddy, stalling won't work.
There
You're
you
gonna
go.
have to fight.
And that and by doing that, that makes that by itself, that one thing right there, what you said, makes jiu-jitsu better. Because that's what I think we all should seek, is to improve our jiu-jitsu, but also to make jiu-jitsu better. We have a higher purpose. So I don't see why not. For me, why I'm not, preparing for November. I'm sure the pod, we got to talk to the powers that be, but I'm sure the podcast definitely wants to sponsor you and I to make that happen.
Yeah, I do want to do some more tournaments this year if the stars align. I'll
Smashers
still
in
do
November.
IBJJF. I've been doing IBJJF for years. I still like them. I'm just offering some suggestions because I think that there's still some rules that are no bueno. So in any event, but we'll be doing some more tournaments. I've got to improve on a lot of things. I got the test drive in my body now. I saw a lot of room for improvement. I will just say this though, no, we talk a lot about mindset here. I felt great mentally, confidence-wise, faith-wise, relaxation. I felt great. I was
Man,
I was dialed in. That would really disappoint me if I went there and I lost and I had, my mindset had been off or whatever. It's like I ate like a champion. I drank 125 ounces of water
wow.
before and coconut water and watermelon before the weigh-in. I was 133.8. My weight was the weight category is 136 and under with the uniform. So I was 2.2 under, even having eaten, very well and plenty of fluids. And so everything, the weight cut was awesome. The mindset was on point. I felt great. We just have to now strategically and technically get so good that you don't have to have that feeling again. Because you heard me, that was a horrible feeling yesterday. I don't want that feeling again.
Okay, it's gotta let go. Well, hey, if we keep these brief, I think like I know my sciatic is starting to hurt. If we keep these brief, we can cover a lot of ground quickly, and we can do this more frequently, which means more content.
All right, my brother. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure. I hope that back of yours feels better. I'm going to go get some sun, and be training 5-6 times a week. And the next time I get this guy, he's a nice guy, I'm going to smash him. I'm telling you, he's going to get smashed. So
All
it's going
right,
to happen.
we'll make the rule set work for you too. All right, well, it's been great
See
talking
you,
to you.
bud.
I will.
Bye, bud.
All right, 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern. Everyman BJJ podcast. Thanks, Frank. See you later.
Bye, brother.